Let me repeat it. Genesis chapter 41 from verse 37. And the thing was good in the eyes of Pharaoh, and in the eyes of his servants. And Pharaoh said unto his servants, Can we find such a one as this is, a man in whom the Spirit of God is? And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, For as much as God as should be all this, there is none as discreet and wise as thou art. I wanted to underline that, if you will. None as discreet and wise as thou art. Thou shalt be over my house, and according unto thy word shall all my people be ruled. Only in the throne will I be greater than thou. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, See, I have set thee over all the land of Egypt. Who was Joseph? At this point, a slave boy who was just in the prime of his life. Who was Pharaoh? The king over Egypt. At least if not the greatest at that time, one of the greatest of the kingdoms on the face of the earth. And where was Joseph? In prison. He was brought out of prison. And miraculously, his life was changed automatically. From a prisoner to the position of a ruler in the palace. Talk about it this way, from grass to glory. Not just to grace, but to glory. I want to discuss something very important this morning, and probably I'll do that over the next few weeks. Pruning for integrity. I know that one of the greatest crave on the face of the earth today, especially among young people, is success. But many times we seek for success that is going to come suddenly. And sometimes people are challenged when they hear of stories of how people miraculously receive elevation. I heard a story of a young lady who was said to have met a man in a restaurant, a beggar. And the man wanted to eat. He was begging for food, so the owner of the restaurant was pursuing him away. But the young lady refused that he should be pursued away, asked him to sit down, bought food for him. And she had an interview to attend the next day. And when she went to the oil company for the interview, the person she met there was that man that she thought was a madman, whom she bought food for the previous day. And she was shocked. The man told her he was going to employ her, but started by giving her a 10 million naira check and employed her automatically, because he said that he was following her to test her. That looks a very dramatic Nollywood kind of story, but it can happen. And those are the kinds of changes that a lot of people are expecting to take place, overnight changes. Once in a while you find such overnight changes, but real lasting changes don't come overnight. And if you notice, even in that story that we have told, there was a test that the lady needed to pass. Many of us are trying to look for these miraculous changes, but we have never passed any test. We have not done anything. Grace is free. But in order to enjoy grace, you must go through the necessary tests in grace. The glory that grace brings does not come without passing the test. One of the greatest tests that you must pass, that God gives to us, is integrity test. You must be pruned. No child is born with integrity. Integrity is not inherited. Although people can say there are inherent behavioral patterns, but the fact is that no child inherits integrity. Integrity is built. You must be pruned for integrity. Like we saw in the life of Joseph. Joseph didn't just get to this place in which Pharaoh automatically says, oh, Joseph, come out from prison, become the governor of Egypt. You're the next person to Pharaoh. Only on the throne I'll be greater than you. It is by your words every person will be ruled. So that Joseph became a millionaire overnight. It didn't just happen. Joseph was pruned at least for 20 years of his life. 20 long, painful years without a promise that this is how it was going to be. And Joseph wasn't pursuing those things because of this. He was pursuing them because that is how he wanted his life to be. And if you want a change in your life that is going to give you real success, enduring success, success that will not break, marriage that will stand the test of time, relationship that will not be blown away by the wind, prosperity that is going to give birth to prosperity in time, you must learn this secret. It is integrity. And God prunes you for integrity. Every child that he loves must be pruned for integrity so that they'll be able to sustain the success that he gives to them. There are two things I will talk about briefly this morning as a kind of foundation. Number one is wisdom. Now, wisdom is a choice. The choices we make as a result of the knowledge we have is what is called wisdom. You may have all the knowledge in the world, but if you don't make the right choices as a result of the knowledge that you have got, then you cannot have wisdom. And wisdom develops. You're pruned for integrity. Integrity is a product of wisdom. Without wisdom, there is no integrity. If you do not have wisdom, you cannot walk in integrity. And never forget the choices that you make. Let me dwell on that thought a little bit. Naturally in life, there are subjective human attitudes, subjective human behaviors. What are subjective human behaviors? That is, the behaviors that come from inside dependent on our feelings, on our perception of things, on the way that we see things around us. And every child is groomed in an environment. There are people that mentor us without us knowing that they're mentoring us. And sometimes we don't even realize that they're mentoring us. It may be our parents, our siblings, our uncles, aunties, our teachers, people around us. And there is a formation of perception. There is a way we begin to see life. There's a way we begin to see relationships. There's a way we begin to see how to treat people. We learn how to treat people the way we see life from the perspective and the perception that they have given to us. If they have given to us hatred, we begin to treat people with hatred without knowing. These are subjective human behaviors. If they have given to us love, we begin to treat people with love, sometimes just unconsciously, without premeditation. It's just the way we see people. We see them rightly, so we treat them rightly. We don't see them rightly, we don't treat them rightly. And sometimes it makes us even see ourselves from a wrong perception and perspective. So because of that, we treat people wrongly. And so wisdom is dependent on the choices that we make. And the choices that we make depend on our subjective ideas, opinions, our subjective feelings. These lead to our choices. And as a believer particularly, as a young man or woman, let me just give you an instance. had this young brother. He wanted to get married. And all his family members are saying, get married, get married, get married. But his idea was, how can I get married? And the girl is not pregnant. Now, you see, these are ideas that he has gotten over the years. He didn't know that these were controlling his choices. So he will relate to that girl. You think that he wants to marry her, he push her aside. He relate to that, push her aside. Push her aside. And when they question him, why are you pushing away every girl? He says, if she is not pregnant, now how would he know whether she can be pregnant or not? That means that he has started sleeping with her. And that is sin. That is fornication. Now, because deep down within, he does not see anything wrong with that, because he says, I want to marry her, I want to be sure that she can bear me children. You see, subjective feelings, subjective behaviors can make us to make the wrong choices. And a lot of people are in bondage because of such choices that they have made over their lives, because of those subjective feelings. And a lot of people, I mean, the average person you see is controlled or makes choices based on those subjective ideas. Ideas from within that have formed patterns, have formed their perceptions, have formed the perspectives from which they see things from inside. It may be right, it may be wrong. The first things that God deals with in our lives are those subjective behavioral patterns that have been formed within us. Because with them, you can't have real wisdom. You may even have twisted wisdom, and you think that you're wise. That's why we're told in the book of Proverbs in chapter 4 verse 7, say, get wisdom, and with all thy getting, get understanding. So you need to understand the pattern of behavior that you have within you. What is controlling you? Don't forget, number one thing in your life that will build integrity is wisdom. And wisdom is dependent on your choices. The choices you make is what defines wisdom. And the choices you make depends on your subjective influences, the kind of subjective perceptions you have, the kind of subjective perceptions you have, and the subjective perspectives from which you see things. You see, if you do not have the right kind of building up inside, if God has not dealt with you inside, if those things within you have not been reordered, reshaped. Now, being born again does not deal with them. You need to build them. That's why God prunes you. Joseph was pruned for 20 years. Look at Joseph at home. Look at the Joseph in the prison. Look at the Joseph on the throne. 3 Josephs. 1 Joseph in 3 levels. That's what God does. Number 2 is weaknesses. Your weaknesses will either make you a man of integrity or will make you a man without integrity. I want to deal with the thought of weakness a little bit, because when we hear weakness, weakness is always in a negative connotation, carries that negative idea, negative aura, negative connotation, weakness. And it's regular for people to say, we all have our weaknesses. No doubt we all have our weaknesses. But did God create you with a weakness? The answer is no. In reality, nobody is created with a weakness. What you see is strength, your potentials that are perhaps not used, they are misused, they are abused, or they are overused. Once there is a proper balance in that thing, you see that what you call a weakness is not really a weakness. It is your potential or your strength turned to the other side, and used negatively. Let's pick something as anger. Some people say, my weakness is anger. Anger is not your weakness. Anger is your strength that is not used that the way you're supposed to use it. Every one of us, you must have anger as a human being. Like the reformer Martin Luther used to say, I walk better when I'm angry. When I had that first, as a young believer, I didn't understand. Until later I came to discover that yes, that's the reality of life. I don't like people who are not angry because they can do anything, take anything, allow anything. You know, it's dangerous. Somebody can be doing a wrong thing. You look at the person. Somebody can be doing even a wrong thing to you because you're not angry. You're just there. Somebody can call you all the names and is telling you that that thing you're doing is bad. You're not angry. You're there. If somebody tells you that you have failed and you are angry at that, you rise up from failure. It doesn't mean fighting the person. If you are angry at being a failure, you will rise up from failure. The moment you are angry, you begin to fight failure. You don't fight the person that's telling you you're a failure. You fight the failure. Now, but you are saying anger is weak. It's not actually a weakness. Now, sometimes anger is misused. Now, somebody tells you that you're angry and you burst out. You're misusing your anger. That means that you are not in control of your anger. You burst out, you get aggressive. You're misusing your anger. That anger is supposed to have moved you to work very hard to be able to move out of that place. I hope you're understanding this. So that thing, I'm just trying to use anger as a point because sometimes people think that anger is bad because it is even God, the Bible tells us, the anger of the Lord. But God does not misuse his anger. There are anger that is abused. How do you abuse anger? Because you are angry, you destroy. You can't be under control again. You are abusing anger. Some people are angry, they must destroy. You are abusing anger. They say, my anger. In fact, my anger. You're abusing anger. That is an energy that you're abusing. And sometimes anger is overused. Because some people have seen that the anger leads them to whatever benefits they want to have. They use it, and uncontrolled, overused anger is destructive. Some people can keep anger a day, 2 days, 3 days, a month. Overused anger is destructive. But anger in itself is an emotion that enables us to maximize our potentials. And that is to say that integrity depends on, number one, the wisdom that you have been pruned to develop. And wisdom is the choices that you make. Experiences. You're going through things. Through that. So God builds in you a wisdom, an understanding of what to do and what not to do, how to say it and not to say it. And then you talk about the weaknesses. No, you don't have a weakness in the sense of the word. You have strengths the moment you recognize that what you call strength, weakness is really your strength. That was why Paul said, when I was weak, then I am strong. As a matter of fact, God reveals to me, so I will glory in my infirmities. I will glory when in my lack, in my want, in my nakedness, in my peril, I will glory. I will rejoice in them because that is where my strength lies. Weaknesses will enable you to depend on God once you recognize them as your strength. Bow your hearts and let's pray. Father, Lord, I